So what's up, everybody? I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of copypasta agitprop. There was a video essay I was going to do about this. I'd still like to do. I have a kind of dream for this one specific video essay, but that's way out in the future. I'm in the middle of a move right now. I literally just packed up my computer and all this stuff. And anyway, copypasta agitprop as a concept is something I just want to start talking about immediately, because it's something that it's a term I coined, that I popularized through my Twitch channel that has that name. It's really, it's the conjunction of two internet slang terms. Copypasta is a kind of meme. It's when you copy something stupid that someone says, and then you elaborate on it and make it sound even more ridiculous, and then you paste it elsewhere as though it's you. It's this kind of, it's this way of making fun of what someone's saying. But I mean, okay, copypasta can take on a variety of different forms, but that's the most typical. So sometimes when you see something in the wild that just seems it seems like you're running into, let's just say, a stereotypical Trump supporter, but then some. It's like extra. Then you start to see it around, right? So that's for sure. You've run into copypasta at that point. Agitprop is agitational propaganda. It's meant to get the workers, specifically. It was developed at first in the USSR, I do believe. It's meant to bring them to class consciousness, to get them to start organizing, to make them realize that they don't have much power, and that what power they do have is being slowly siphoned away into a machine that will later just write them off, and they'll have nothing left to show for it, because that's the way that technological development that we help create through our labor takes off with our labor, leaving us alienated and disaffected, And so agitprop is supposed to bring you to consciousness, so it's supposed to agitate you. It's supposed to bust you out of your little bubble. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to be upsetting. Agitational propaganda could be very subtle. It could be, it's supposed to provoke thought, though. And when you take agitprop and add it to the idea of copypasta, the vision to me is that over time, we will get better and better and better at combating ideas, garbage ideas out in the wild. Right now, if someone asks you the same freaking thing that you've been asked 1,000 times, and you're tired of having to educate people on something that at this point seems so transparently obvious and that you've already responded to a ton of times, then it calls for some kind of a document, some kind of a resource perhaps, of these responses that you've given before, that you can fine tune over time as you get responses to them. So copypasta agitprop is what I was doing the day that my YouTube channel got terminated. It means I was developing specific responses to combat certain talking points that were being spread by the mainstream media. For me, that had to do with Bernie. Let's just say people say, oh, he's too old. Well, there's an answer to that. Bloomberg is just as old, has had the exact same heart problems. So why is it that the mainstream media isn't asking him about his medical records? That's something that you can say. Or, Joe Biden is nearly as old, but in way worse health. His mental capacities are obviously deteriorating. He's becoming more curmudgeon-y, and to the point where he doesn't even answer people's questions in any sort of way. He'll just poke them in the chest and say they should vote for someone else. It's like, it's not presidential behavior. Like, some people age well, some people not so well. And we hope that Biden settles down and retires soon, because he's embarrassing himself and everyone else. Whereas obviously Bernie could easily have another 20 years in him, and technology being what it is, hell, let's make it another 200 years. But anyway, that's a talking point. I could literally just I could write out everything I just said and then use that to paste whenever I see this shit pop up in the wild. And then other people could copy that and then tweak it in their own ways and then paste it every time they see it pop up in the wild. You know, we can do the same thing with videos. These can be seen as a form of like intervention. We can have flowcharts. My brother Rivera, who has a channel, I'll link that in the description, talks about the need to develop flowcharts for the you know, arguments, the ways that conversations will go. And I think that one of the important things about this is it takes off the pressure to have to produce, to reproduce, to rewrite all of that every time you run into this. Because if we do that, then we are wasting so much time, energy, and attention. Now, in a sort of sense, you're never really wasting it if you give it your all and you really develop it. But most of the time we don't have time for that. And so a lot of the impatience when it comes to political conversations isn't because we don't respect the other person. It isn't because we don't theoretically want to be able to engage in a disagreement. It's just that we're so impatient because we've done it 1,000 times before and we're exhausted from having to do it. COPYPASTA AGITPROP would be a way to sow seeds to what I call intersectional, international class consciousness, right? Like we need to empower people with not just propaganda, not just ideological talking points, not just like that stuff's fine and dandy, I guess, so that might be needed for some people. But I think that we have to be trying to appeal to good faith actors who aren't just going to buy into an ideology wholesale because they want to be a part of some group or because they're reacting against the society that they live in. And so they're just jumping onto whatever looks like it's best equipped to take them to where they want to go or to react in the way they want to react. No, we want to empower people to make good faith, well-reasoned position changes over time. And to do that, we have to use philosophy, theory, history, rhetoric, logic. All of these things are integral and necessary, and the vehicle for them a lot of the time has to be aesthetic and it has to be narrative, you know. So we need storytellers. We need, and everything I just listed out is there are careers that you already have to make money, right? There are careers that can develop your abilities in one or multiple of those areas. And those are things to be looking into, because if you've already got to make money to survive because you're not lucky as hell, privileged son of a bitch, then you're not really a son of a bitch, but you know, if you do have to work anyway, then try to find a way to get a job that will allow you to stack those functions so that you are developing those rhetorical, logical, critical thinking, aesthetic, etc. abilities that are already so necessary for doing the kind of copy-pasta agitprop that we will need to do over time. And now I'm gonna wrap this video up with I wanted to, the thing that provoked this is that there's a problem with when you refine these kinds of processes. You start streamlining processes, you start stacking functions and integrating processes into, you could say, you institutionalize certain habits when you start duplicating in ways that removes a lot of redundancy. So if there's a mistake you save a lot of time, energy, and attention. But if there's a mistake in your argument that you become accustomed to using, then that mistake is going to be replicated over and over and over again. And now this isn't just in copy-pasta agitprop. This is in code. This is in daily life with your actual habits. And this is in daily life with our actual institutions, with things like systemic racism, where there are mistakes that get duplicated and then just exponentially reproduced because it seemingly works. We've already done it. We've been doing it. We don't have the time, energy, attention, or money, resources, etc., to be able to change it. And so we think, well, why would we go after the heart of the problem, the actual systemic issues that are creating these issues? Let's use a really basic example of systemic racism in a way that will just blow your mind. Like no one sees this coming, but you know, when all of the engineers developing something like a soap dispenser or automatic water dispenser at a you know, in the bathrooms, you know, for those people, if that is developed by all people who all have pale, pasty, white skin, then this issue has arisen before, where the sensors created are actually only picking up on that color of skin. This wasn't done purposefully. This wasn't done with malintent. It wasn't necessarily personally racist. It's just by mere fact that of who was designing it and who they were associating with at the time, there was just this oversight that had damning and expensive, but also very insulting consequences that spread out across the country really fast once it hit production. So anyway, for me, working on that video for Kashana Savant, I believe is Savant, I don't know how to say her name exactly, but the video I just put out, that was the trailer, as well as the video that comes out tomorrow, in the actual video, I leave an A out of her name, and I also was writing her name wrong in like everything, and it's just so obnoxious to me. It's like I'm able to go back and fix it most of the places that mistake occurred, but some places I can't fix it, and it's like, how did that happen? Well, I saw her name, and maybe I saw it wrong in the first place, and then I wrote it down wrong. Or maybe I just messed it up in the first place, and then I wrote it down wrong. But then I just kept going off of what I'd initially written, and so here I was duplicating and proliferating a mistake. So there is a danger in copy pasta, anything, and there's a danger in copying and pasting anything. And there's obviously going to be a danger in COPYPASTA agitprop. And so as we come up with models for systematically combating talking points and arguments in the wild, we should also be thinking about ways of making it so that recall or editing what we've done is going to be a lot more possible or feasible. It would be really cool, for instance, to have an app, a plugin on your browser where you are able to see suggested responses other people in your network have used for specific talking points that you can then edit in any way you want, either to make it sound more like yourself, putting it in your own words, you know, adding some details, correcting for something that you disagree with, and then using that to respond to things out in the wild. But then those edits that you do could be suggested to other people who are using the same plugin, and then they will see that there are different options for what to say. And for instance, let's just say that you've used a certain response 50 times out on the internet over the course of the last year, and then someone comes along and they add a source, or they change an important point to that specific message that you've already been using, and then you go, it gives you a notification, and then you're able to accept, modify, or deny this change to your own comments that you've already put out there on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Reddit, on Tumblr, wherever it might be. We ain't there yet. I don't know anybody who is currently working on that kind of software. It doesn't seem like it would be that impossible. But even if it's not exactly like that, we need to be thinking of things like this, because we don't have infinite time, energy, or attention to be able to put into these things, and we don't have like all-knowing knowledge that would give us where we would just always know exactly what to say, right? And so pooling our collective abilities in ways like this is, generally speaking, what copy-pasta agitprop is, and as to why it's inherently using the best aspects of capitalism while disavowing and undermining the worst, that is a video essay that will have to come out in the future. All right, phone's about to die. Much love. Do comment, say something. Peace.